And Lamed Aleph on base at the top. Matamud Lomar Va'chetzio. Why did it say? The pasuk says in Yoshua. It says the Korbaneda brings down this pasuk right at the top of the Korbaneda. It says Choisos Kenov, Gomer, etc. Chetzio mul hargrizim. Half it was up in hargrizim. Ve'hachetzio, and the half with the hair yediyah. Mul harevo, right? So why did it say ve'hachetzio? Elamalamed with the extra hay. Elamalamed shemuatim mu'utim ba'hargrizim. There was a smaller number in hargrizim, and the larger number ruin b'haraevo. And in Har Grizim was the bracha, and they had Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Yosef, and Binyamin. You don't have to remember that. On Har Evel, you had the Klola, and you had the Reuven, Gad, Asher, Zvulun, Dan, and Naphtali. Okay, so the ones on Har Grizim were lesser than the ones on Har Evel. Lama, why is that? Shein Shivto Shel Levi. One reason given here is Shein Shivto Shel Levi Kulam Sham. Not all the Levites were there. She'im hayakol shivto shel Levi, hayakol shevet Levi, kulo sham hayu shabbat. Right? Because if all the Levim were there, then it would be equivalent. Of course, some of the Levim were down between. Right? They were down below. Right? Rabbi Shua bar Nachman said, "Ilu hayakol shivto shel Levi sham lo hayu shabbat." Even if all of them were there, they would not have been equal. How? Why so? Because Shimon, which was one of the other Shvatim on Har Grizim, by the bracha, that had been depleted by 24,000 with the episode with Pinchas after Cosby by Shittim. So therefore, it wouldn't have been equivalent.
Did you say Shevet Yosef? I thought you mentioned the word
Yosef, yeah. Menashe and Ephraim. Menashe and Ephraim. They're both in Har Grizim. Yeah. Rabbi Yosef said, Ela said, no. If all of Levi, Shevet Levi would have been there, the taka would have been equivalent. Lama, by the way, none of this is in the Bavli. Lama shalo bami Shevet Ruvain v'Gad. On the other mountain, on Abel, he had Ruvain and Gad, but the bulk of Shevet Ruvain and Gad had remained home on the Aver Yarden, because Ruvain, Gad, and Chatzi Menashe had remained on the other side of the Jordan River.
Weren't they supposed to cross over?
How many crossed over? It says here. The Shalom Bar Mishav Reuven Megad El Arboy Melech Chalutzei Tzava. Of them, only the 40,000 soldiers came, not the older and young, too young. Okay, right. Kahana Amar. Now, the Shari Teres Yisrael changes around the gears considerably in the next few lines. And I prefer to go with this change of gears, which brings the Yerushalmi more in line with the Bavli, and also is more understandable. So it's going to be a little bit choppy for the next few lines. Kahana Amar, Kishem Shein Chalukin Kachokin Kan, just like they were divided here on Har Grizim and Har Evo, Kachim Chalukim, so too they are divided. It says here B'tchilas HaChumash HaSheni, but it should say instead Ba'avnei HaEphod. Now, there were two stones on the Kohen Gadol's apron straps. You know, he had an apron which he wore backwards, and on the back, and it's called the ephod, and the two straps coming over his shoulders, and there was one stone on either side, right? Two stones called the Avnei ephod, and each one of them had 6 shvatim on it, written on the stone. So just they divided. He's saying just as they divided Har Grizim and Har Evel, so too they divided on the stones. Okay, so you had on one of them Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Yosef, Binyamin. The other one you had Reuven, Gad, Asher, and Zvulun, Dan, Naphtali. Okay, Tani. There are those who learned Kishem Shem Chalukim Kan, just like they're divided here. Now instead of Kachein, the Shari Teretz Yisrael says Kishem Shel V'lo Kishem Shein Chalukim Mitgolim. Like they're divided here, and not like they're divided by the Golim, meaning that by the Golim they were divided up, but Yeah, they're in patterns, but you could have made. There is an opinion in the Bavli that you take sets like two. There were 4 sets of 3, right? So you take sets, and that's how they divide up on the Avnei Ephod. In the Living Torah, I would not have been able to understand the sugya without the Living Torah by Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan, and there he brings down innumerable shitas about how they're divided on the. They're not innumerable, obviously. There are 3 or 4 shitas of how they're divided up on the Avnei Ephod. So there's one shita that was divided up similarly to the way they were marched in the. So here it says Yerushalmi says it's not that way, and also the Shaitar so throws in the words Ella kishem shem chalukim b'tchilas chumash hasheni. Rather, like to divide up the beginning of the first of chumash hasheni, meaning the beginning of Shmos. There's a division of the Shvatim. It says there, they're not right down how they're divided there, but they're divided there. Say kind of quickly. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zvulun, Binyamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher, and then Yosef. So I guess he would have the first 6 on one side, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zvulun, and the next 6 on the next one, Binyamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, and Yosef. That's how he would have it on the Avnei Ephod, the 2 stones on the shoulders of the Kohen Gadol. Okay, you don't have that girsa. Okay, but he throws that in from the Bavli. Now, there's another version here, which is, although he actually, I don't think the Shaitar Yisrael learns it as a different shita, but there's another shita here, which again I would not have understood without the Living Torah. The way the Living Torah has it, in the name of the Bali Tosfos al Torah, he doesn't quote Yerushalmi, but the way that the way he has it there. It's Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zvulun on stone number 1, on the right stone. Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, and Yosef and Binyamin on stone number 2. Now look at the way Yerushalmi describes it. B'nai Leah Mikan. The B'nai Leah were at the beginning. U'B'nai Rachel Mikan. And the B'nai Rachel were at the end. Chad Mikan, 1 set on one side, the Chaim Mikan, the other set on the other side. So he had here, on the right side, he had all the B'nai Leah, from the beginning, Reuven to down. On the left side, you had Yosef ben Yamin at the end, the last 2 names. So they were sandwiched. And then, Upnei Shvachos Be'emtza. On the top of the second stone, you had the sons of the Shvachos, of Bilhah and Zilpah, which are done Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. Okay, so again, B'nai Leah, B'nai Yosef at the bottom here, and the B'nai Shvachos in the middle sandwich, which means they were from the top of the stone, the first 4 names. Okay? That's how he learns it. The Yerushalmi. Amar Rabbi Tanya said, Tamei Dehadein Tanya. The reason is based on the following pasuk. Now, for some reason, Moshe, Carbonata, they all go crazy trying to change your souls, make this work over here, the sugya, but it's really very pashut, the way I just told you, based on Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan's determination. And here it's based on this pasuk. Shma Elai Yaakov, Avdi, V'Yisrael, Mekurai. Listen to me, Yaakov. Yaakov are pretty chashuv. Avdi are less chashuv. Yisrael is the most chashuv, right? Because Yisrael is a more chashuv Shem than Yaakov, right? So Yaakov is the Bnei Leah. Avdi are the Bnei Shvachos, and Yisrael are the Bnei Yosef. Nobody says shot like that in the Yerushalmi, but it's pashut, right? It's yeah, it's very logical. Yeah. Okay. So it's a plea that nobody says like that. So I'm great. Yeshkoch to Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan for that clue. Otherwise, I'd not be able to figure it out myself. So you saw actually what Makuri means, those who I called. Ma tikrazu, just like a roof of your dahain. Now I'm not sure exactly how they made the roofs in the old days, but he says Obviously, they had a thick layer and a thinner layer and a thick layer on top somehow. I don't know exactly how it is. But Matik Razu, Ovia Dehain Gabi Kutnan Dehain, the thicker part of this layer, it corresponds to the thinner part of this layer. Vovia Dehain Gabi Kutnain, and the thicker part of the layer of the other layer, and the other layer is by the thinner part of the other layer. So I don't know exactly how it works here, but the bottom line is that you have a thick layer, thin layer, then a thick layer. So, okay, a sandwich, right? Says, well, I didn't have the word sandwich all day, so it would have made life greatly simplified. Okay, so says the Gemara, Eastani, there are those who learned just another version. Eastani tag Shem Shein Chalukin Kain Kan Kach Chilu Vavne Efod. Just like they were divided up by Agrizim Evo, so too they divide up by the stones of the ephod. B'milu osam. Now it says b'milu osam. They were made complete. What does it mean they were made complete? Literally, b'milu osam means the stones were completely filled their sockets. But we're darshaning here. They were made complete. How are they made complete? So he says kedusha kadeshu asrim v'chamishor mikan asrim v'chamishor mikan. Each stone had 25 letters on it. Now this is according to the opinion that they divided up in the stones like they divided up Har Grizim and Har Evo. Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Yosef, Binyamin on one stone, Reuven, Gad, Asher, Zvulun, Dan, Naphtali on the other stone. So there are 25 letters on each stone. So Gemara says it doesn't work. There are only 49 letters altogether. 25 and 25 equals 50. It's not 49, right? Or Rabbi Yochanan, Binyamin, the V'tol Mole. The Binyamin here, which is written on the ephod, is written Mole. Normally Binyamin is written in the Chumash without the second yud, but this Binyamin was written with the second yud, or something like that. Anyway, Rav Yehuda bar yeah, that's true. Rav Yehuda bar Yosef, Yehosef Mole. No, it wasn't Binyamin which was Mole. It was Yehosef. Yehosef. We have pasuk Eidos B'Yosef Samo. It's one of the psukim we say in Shir Shem. I forget which day. So Yosef is rarely, but occasionally called Yehosef, right? So there it's on the ephod said Yehosef. So that's more. Anyway, wait, it still has to work out. Hello, Einan Ela Esrim Shloisha Mikan Esrim Shiva Mikan. It's not 25 and 25. That'll get you up to 50, but still only 23 and 27. It's not 25 and 25. So Rabbi Yochanan said Binyamin Hoya Chetzio. Binyamin was divided in half. Bin Mikan, Bin on one stone, Yamin Mikan, and Yamin on the other stone. So he's going like the sheet that was Yehosef, which was added on. And Binyamin was Ben and Yaman. So it was Ben on one and Yamin on the other. That's what made it 25. I saw the Meshech Chochmah says, I'm so shocked if nobody said it before him. But he claims that basically it's his own thing. He says, the remez for this drush in Yerushalmi is in Yaakov's bracha to Binyamin. What did Yaakov say in his bracha to Binyamin? No, it's in Moshe's bracha to Binyamin. Moshe's bracha to Binyamin. No, sorry, not. What did it say in Moshe's bracha? I think it's in Moshe's bracha. No. I know, watch that. It's too drunk with it. If it's too drunk by the time you get to there, oh boy.
I get the Leah Levy.
No, it's in Moshe's bracha. In Moshe's bracha it says, Ubank Seifov Shochen. You remember that language, Ubank Seifov Shochen? Remember that? Anyway, Bank Seifov Shochen means he is between the two shoulders he dwells. Between the two shoulders, okay?
Oh, wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it shows the guys in Meshech Chochmah. I'm shocked nobody actually said it before him. Okay, so I guess the Yerushalmi, maybe not too many people learned the Yerushalmi to know to say it. I don't know. It's like a rugged trouble. Oh, they came from the same city.
Interpretation.
Rashi says that the Beis Hamikdash is built in Shevet Binyamin, and therefore it's between the shoulders of Binyamin the Shekhinah resides. I wrote in my Gemara here, "Pele huimar samechu arishon shechashav al davar zeh." This is amazing. They are certainly the first one. Okay, says Rav Zira said, "V'os sakotavot." He said, "Binyamin was vada miksiv shishash mosam." Does it say 6 names? No, Ela mishmoisam. It says Shisha mishmosam aleven echos with a mem. The word the mem is superfluous, right? So it means 6 of their names, meaning one of the names is going to be divided into. Shisha mishmosam v'lo kol shmosam. Okay? Harishonim nichtavim. The first names are written miyamino shel kohen gadol. On the right side of the kohen gadol it says mimino, but it's miyamino. From the right side of the kohen gadol, mismol shel kohen, from the left of the person who's reading. V'achroin nichtav mismol shel kohen gadol miyamino shel kohen. Those written on the left, on the right side of the person who's reading. I don't know exactly why. What the chiddush is. Maybe it's going to tell us that nobody is preferential treatment because right from one person's perspective is left from another person's perspective. At first I thought it meant that some of them are written backwards, but that makes no sense. Just means that whoever's from the Kohen Gadol's perspective, certain names are on the right, and from the person who's looking at perspective, certain other names on the right. Maybe there's some Kabbalistic connotation here. I don't know exactly what it means. But anyway, that's what literally the words means. The first names, by the way, most of the sugya, the overwhelming majority of the sugya is not in the Bavli. The Bavli has a parallel sugya, which discusses how the names were distributed, but not with the same types of approaches as the Yerushalmi. The first ones are not written in order. Yehuda Melech, because Yehuda has to be on top. It wasn't Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Yosef, Binyamin. Again, according to the man number, they divided up on Avnei Evel, they divided up Hargrizim, Arevo. Rather, Yehuda came first because he's the king. Achroinim, the last ones were written out as Seder, and it was Ruvain, Gad, Asher, Zvulun, Dan, Naphtali. Okay? So the ones on the right, which did not go in age order, Shimon and Levi, even though older, not come before Yehuda, either came first. The ones on the left, Ruvain, who of course was firstborn, was put first on the left. Okay?
Did the Gemara answer why there was extra hay, har hay? What was that? Because there were more people on that mountain?
On our Abel, there are extra people, right? That's our more power. Yeah, the extra reason, yeah. Okay. Then they brought the stones, and they built them mizbeach, and they plastered them. Because the name is called the Torah, and they wrote the entire Torah, B'shim Losh in 70 languages. Shem says, Ba'er Heidev, explained very well. They took the Avonim, and they went back home. So they actually took up the stones, and took the stones with them. They didn't spend that night in Hargrizim Harevo. They went back to Gilgal. There's going to be opinion that, they came, traveled far distance, went back afterwards. So they went and they brought him back to wherever they were staying. Tani. Now we have Machlokas in the Gemara. The Korban and Pnei Moshe learned that at least Rabbi Yehuda, maybe Rabbi Yossi argues in our Mishnah, but the Shari Torah Eretz Yisrael makes it work out very nicely with our Mishnah. I don't see any reasons to learn that it argues. The Shaila is the same stones. There was one set of stones. But where they write the Torah on the stones? Did they write the Torah on the stones while they were staying in Har Grizim and Har Evo? They take the stones back with them and then write the Torah on the stones where they were staying. Now, you ask, who cares? So the thing is, remember, it says here they had to put plaster on the stones, right? So if they wrote in Har Grizim and Har Evo, they didn't write on the plaster because the plaster would break off. So they had to write on the stones themselves. If they wrote by the hotel where they were staying overnight, then they could write on the plaster. Okay? That's going to be a very big nafkamina that Gemara is going to discuss now. Okay? Rabbi Yossi, so again, the Korban Pnei Moshe want to learn that there were two sets of there are two sets of stones. These Tanoim mentioned in the Bryce of the Gemara. They learned there were two sets of stones, and the Mishnah learns that there was one set of stones, but the Shari Torah Eretz Yisrael says there was one set of stones. Rabbi Yossi Omer Tani Al Avnei Lo Nichtavu. The Torah was written on the stones when they were in the hotel. Even Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi Omer Avnei Mizbeach. They were written on the stones when the stones were in place in Har Grizim and Har Evo. Madam Al Avnei Lo Nichtavu. He says it's written on the stones of the hotel. Bechol Yom v'Yom. Each time they Umosolam Mishalchin No Treyon. And the Umosolam would send either their scribes. According to in the Bavli, the word Notre means scribes. Here, I would say it means their workers. Umasina Satira, and they would take away the Torah, so ksuva al ksuva b'shivin lashon, and they would take away the Torah, which was written in 70 languages. Now, two possibilities: either they transcribed it, or they actually peeled off the plaster and took the plaster with them. Right? The language of Messian also sounds like they carried it away, so they carried it away. They carried away the plaster. Now, Madam Avni Mizbech, Dichtavu Yozer in the stones Bech, Lo L'Shah Asmar Lo L'Shah Hayu V'Nignazu. Were the stones in Mizbech only temporary, and then they were put in Gniza. Now, it's a strange question. I mean, what do you mean? How do we know they're put in Gniza? He says that no, there are various different interpretations of Moshe. I think what it means that what the Gemara means to ask here is that if it's written on the stones, they can't take it away with them, right? If it's written on plaster, so the Umas Olam come, they take the plaster home, and we write it again on the next piece of plaster for somebody else to take home. Come the next day and take it home to themselves. But if we're going to write on stones, they can't take the stones home. Then we're not going to let them take the stones in his back, right? So what's going to happen? People are going to come and read it, but they're not going to remember it. And eventually the Mizbeach stones will be put in Kniza. So it's going to be lost. It's going to be for fouling, right? So the Gemara gives an answer. Odi Maisa Nisim. No, it's the Maisa Nisim involved. Nasa Kosh Baruch Hu Bina B'Lev Kol Uma V'Uma. Kosh Baruch Hu gave understanding to each and every nation. V'Siu Es HaTorah. And instead of taking the plaster, they understood, they memorized it. They had a special capacity to memorize, and they took it not literally, but rather they carried the Torah in their heart. Okay? Now, Madam Avnei Malone Nichtavu, he who says that it was written on the stones, on the malone, in the malone, doesn't make sense. As Santos on the seed, on the they had plaster, and he wrote on the plaster. But Madam Avnei Mizbech Nichtavu, Mamakayim Santos on the seed. What are you going to do with the plaster? What does the plaster do? I mean, I shouldn't say what does the plaster do. Where are they putting plaster on the stones?
I don't understand.
If they wrote on the stones themselves,
Yeah.
the plaster is going to cover up the writing, right? So why do they put on plaster? So where's this plaster of Satos on the seed? So the Bavli actually says, in Rabbi Yehuda, it's not the Yerushalmi, but the Bavli says in Rabbi Yehuda, they took a roti and they covered it up. They covered it up with plaster. And there it says, Kosh Baruch Hu gave Bina Biyada Umas Olam to peel away the plaster. And they should find the Torah underneath. That's the Bavli. So Tzidar Shai Torah Yisrael puts a little bit of a Haskolish spin on this. And he says that it's Yodua that the ancient Persians, they used to engrave carvings into the walls, and they used to cover them with plaster so they remain intact over the years. So too, one could understand here that the reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded that the stones be covered with plaster is to preserve the original text of the Torah intact. And therefore, the plaster would protect it over time. Right? But in any event, says the Bavli that the Umas Olam came and peeled away the plaster so they could get the Torah. Right? So, but the Yerushalmi doesn't hold that. The Yerushalmi holds, ever practical, makes no sense for them to write the Torah and cover it up with plaster, right? So therefore, what do you do with Satos on the seed? Ben called Evan ve'Evan, between each and every stone they put plaster. It wasn't on the stones, it was between the stones. So the Ma'adam, according to Yerushalmi, the Ma'adam holds that they wrote on Avnei Molon, on the stones when they took them, when they placed them in their resting place, means that they wrote on the plaster, and the Goyim would come and take the plaster home with them, and they write again on plaster. The next Goyim would come, and so on and so forth. Ma'adam holds they wrote on the stone itself. Back on Hargrizim Evo means that they would take the stones, place them in the Gilgal, and there they would put plaster between the stones to hold in place, and the Umas Olam came and read it and memorize what it said. According to the Bavli, they wrote on the stones themselves, and then they covered it with plaster, and the plaster actually was removed by the goyim so they could read the Torah underneath. Okay? Says more further. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachman Yochanan says, the nation will be burnt up with plaster, meaning misid, because they had the plaster. They knew what was going on with the Torah. They read the plaster, and since they didn't fulfill it, Naklu Avsisin Shalami, so they got their Gzar Din to be put to death. Nimtzei Soimer, so it comes out to saying, Shlosha Mini Avonim. There are three types of stones, meaning three stones which are monuments when they entered Eretz Yisrael. Avnei Malon, the stones of the hotel where they stayed. Vavnei, which we assume are the same stones they carved from the Mizbeach and Har Grizim Har Evo. Again, according to Shari Torah, Eretz Yisrael, there's one set of stones. It's just that they moved it physically from Har Grizim Har Evo back to Gilgal. Vavanim Sheniach Yeshua Tachas Kapos Raglei Kohanim, and the stones which Yeshua placed underneath the feet of the Kohanim. When they came, what?
Put their feet in the river.
Yeah, under the river. Yeah, that was in the river actually. The istolios shenesan Moshe. And certain the Greek word I think is steels. Those are also similar stones written on by Moshe Rabbeinu. Now I thought it could be the luchos, but it doesn't sound like it's the luchos. It sounds like Moshe Rabbeinu from Kormei, Moshe, and Vababli. It sounds like there were also Moshe Rabbeinu had this thing that he wrote on stones, the Torah itself, and that they took over with them from the Midbar.
Maybe it's the first luchos.
Well, that wouldn't be intact, so I don't know. It's not. It sounds like it's something which has writing. A steel is something which has, like the Rosetta Stone. It's a stone which has writing on it. So the luchos rishonos are broken. All right, Rechinan said, Pashulan arba minei avodim. There are four types of stones. And the other fourth type of stone was the one which Yoshua took out of the Yarden and put on the banks of the river. There was a fourth one which he took stones out and put at the banks of the river. Because in Tamar Avnei Milon can't be the stones of the hotel, right? L'shor hayuvanignazu. They were taken and they were put in Geniza in Gilgal, or they put in Geniza, or according to the other opinion, they were wrapped around with the plaster. But those are different stones. Because say the stones that Yeshua put underneath the feet of the Kohanim in the water, those remained to eventually sunk into the water. Moshe, we're going to say it's the steels that Moshe Rabbeinu gave to them. They came into Eretz Yisrael with them. So one of the stones, there was a fourth set of stones. And Yoshua made them pile of stones on the banks of the Jordan River. Now, Tani, Rabbi Yehuda Ve'Eloy Amar, this is in the Bavli as well. Abba Chalafta, Rabbi Elazar and Masio, V'Chanani ben Chachanoi, Omdoloso Abonim, they stood around those stones, they found them. The shiur, they found Kov, they reckoned them. The Koachas V'Achas Masui Abonim, so each of them would weigh 40 saw of water. So obviously astronomical, huge stones, right? So, Mikanat Lomed, Kama Yob Eshkol. And since they were able to carry stones this hefty, you learn how big was the cluster of grapes carried by the Meraglim. Okay? Ksiv, it says, each person took one stone on his shoulder. Now it seems somehow the Yerushalmi knows, I don't know how, that when they took the stones, they didn't take them like this. They didn't take them like this. See, I have the stone here. That's the same as the floor. They didn't take them up and then up like this on the shoulder. Rather, they took them in one fell swoop from the ground to the shoulder. I don't know if Yerushalmi knows that from this possible. That's what it says here. So it says Yerushalmi, were they able to make a stop in the middle, the stones have been even heavier, right? Lo dami ha'u determine our katfe. There's no comparison between a guy who takes from the ground directly to his shoulder to a guy Lauda toy mi ara lakavos. So your guy takes from the ground to his knees or his thighs. Mirakavosim from his thighs, like seifel to his shoulder. And lodami launda toy min lauda toy min ara kavute. There's no capacity to a guy who carries from the ground to his knees. And from his knees to his shoulders, it's not comparable if somebody else gives it to him. In other words, you have to carry less if you have to pick it up yourself than if somebody else gives it to you to carry. And it's not comparable to somebody who's loaded up by somebody else. Betrayed to somebody who carries with two people to begin with. Okay, so therefore, the Meraglim, how many then carried the Eshkol? 8. 8 people carried the cluster of grapes.
The total. Each cluster was 8 people?
Yeah.
The wine bottle. Yeah, the wine bottle.
That's because the Paz says, Vayisubim Opishnaim. But the way actually the Bavli has the picture, the way the picture is commonly drawn, actually, according to the Bavli, although the Yorach has a different picture, which I'll tell you momentarily. The way the picture is commonly drawn is like this. Each.
The Ministry of Tourism has to say, that's right, 2 people.
But you had 8 people like that, like the tic-tac-toe. So you had 2 people carrying each moat, each pole, okay? We'll see a different shot in a few minutes. But in any event, so therefore, and if these guys could carry the stones at 40 saw with all these limitations, certainly the guys who carried the eshkol is much heavier. Okay? Now the Bavli says 8 guys carried an eshkol, and 1 guy carried it to Eina, and another guy carried a rimon, and Yoshua and Kaleb didn't take anything. That's the Bavli. Right? Does that ring a bell by you?
Yeah, okay. That's the 12.
12, right? And Yoshua and Kaleb did not carry anything. Just now, here says Gemara. So, to Rabbi Akiva, that was a drum roll. To Rabbi Akiva, Du'amar l'shoynes r'buyimim. When Rabbi Akiva says that the l'shoynes, actual l'shoynes are inclusions, I skipped the line. See if it says ish echad l'shevet. Why don't you say ish l'shevet or echad l'shevet, right? I skipped the line, right? Al dait Rabbi Akiva du'amar l'shoynes r'buyim. It says extra languages come to riboy. Esriv arbayu. There were 24 meraglim. Ever hear that one before? No. Does that ring a bell? There were 24 meraglim. Now there's a beautiful Chasam Sofer here. He says the pshat. He says it's Taka Pliya, an Am Yisrael. How come they believed in Meraglim? We know the Zohar says that they were in the Sia Yisrael. I mean, the Chumash says the Sia Yisrael. The Zohar says the reason why they lied about Eretz Yisrael is because they didn't want to enter Eretz Yisrael. Because once they enter Eretz Yisrael, they're going to lose their Nesias. They'll become superfluous. The famous Zohar. So Chazam Sofer says, Taka, it's difficult. Chazam Sofer on the bottom. Taka, difficult. How come they believed it? Didn't they know that these guys are no Gam B'Davar? So it says Chazam Sofer, based on the Yerushalmi, it says that Bnei Yisrael said, "Achenu heimasus levaveinu." Our brothers melted our hearts. So he says, what's the pshat? Not Nesienu heimasus levaveinu, but Achenu. Says the Am Yisrael said, we don't believe in the Nesiim. We know they're no B'Davar, but their understudies, the other 12 guys, the second tier people, they're Achenu. And they don't have Negias. They're the ones who melted our hearts. That's why we don't want to enter Eretz Yisrael. So according to Rabbi Akiva, the Amar Shor Abraham has seen by there are 24 Meraglim. Shisha Sorbe Eshkol, 16 people carried the grape cluster. Ushmoneng, 8 people carried to Einim Rimonim, Nosa Kalim, and their suitcases. So there were 24 Meraglim altogether.
Where did you get that number from? There's no...
Ish echad l'shevet. One of those words is superfluous. Could have said ish l'shevet or echad l'shevet. So that's it's extra. It's like he doesn't know the s's, so he doesn't hear also the extra word. Okay. Al daikid Rabbi Shmuel
So it's Shisha, sorry, there are 24 Meraglim,
Yeah.
16 carried one,
Grape cluster, yeah.
16 obviously very huge.
Yeah.
And all they took back was one grape cluster?
Okay. Maybe there are a lot of grapes on the cluster. I mean, could we took back a whole tree? I don't know what it is. Was it?
Right now we're up to 40 people.
No.
The Meraglim had more than so they
24 people.
I understand you said 24 Meraglim,
Yeah.
but so you're saying that of the 24, 16.
Of the 24, 16 carried the cluster and 8 carried the other stuff. So that's 24 altogether.
Well, that means that Yoshua and Caleb did carry.
Yeah, according to Yerushalmi, and even according next to me, Al-Daiti Rabbi Shmuel, the Amar Lashon is fully named. He says all of Dibur Torah Kloshim Minei Adam. Torah speaks like a human being speaks, so he doesn't dash the extra language. So he also Taka word 12. Shnei Masar Ayu. Shmona b'm Eshkol. 8 carried the cluster. And 4 people carried the figs and the pomegranates and the suitcases. Al-Daiti Rabbi Shmuel, Turtarin. According to Rabbi Shmuel, it's Turtarin. Turtarin means double, what? Double rods. Double rods. Now, there are two ways of interpreting double rods. This is the way I would interpret double rods, right? 2 rods in each direction, right? It makes 8. But the guy who wrote the Aruch has a parish here which has it actually like this, like something like a Sefer Torah. You had 8 guys like this, like the 2 Atzei Chaim here. And they put a between the 2 poles they put a stretcher or a hammock, right? So you had 2 guys on each 4 guys on each pole like that. Okay, there were 2 smaller poles on a bigger pole. And you had 4 guys like that. So that's according to Rabbi Shmuel. According to Rabbi Akiva, Al-Daiti Rabbi Akiva, turturin v'turturei turturin. You had double. In other words, this is going in one direction, but he also had going in the other direction as well. So you get 16. So in essence, it looks like this picture, except with, instead of having just like a tic-tac-toe board, at each segment you had double the people in order to get up to 16. Okay, the Bible also uses the language of turturin and turturin, but it never goes up to 24. And obviously, the language has a different meaning there. Okay. Ksiv, it says, Vayamdu amayim, hayordim milamah. Now, this is in the Bible. Vayamdu, anyway, remember this. Remember nothing else from Sotah. Remember 24 Meraglim, because that's I haven't had a shock like that in a while. Okay. Somebody asked me that. I told the base medicine, when I have a really geschmack Yerushalmi, I go over and tell people, even though they're not Yerushalmi, obviously. Somebody said, according to Yerushalmi, how many people should you need for a minyan? 20. Right? Because we learn out Deito Razos, right? So you should need 20 people for a minyan, according to Yerushalmi. According to Rabbi Akiva. Stuck in the question. Okay.
We have enough trouble getting
Yeah, that's right. You're passing like the Bavli. Okay. Ksiv, it says, Vayadu amayim hayordim milamalo. The waters which were coming down the Jordan when they crossed over stood. Neid echad.
It'd still be 22.
Why 22? We don't count Yoshua and Caleb and why
We don't double them.
No, they're understudies.
They have understudies.
Some of their understudies are also Halak
They
mentioned.
were the good guys, so why do you exclude their understudies? It's Yeshua and Caleb. It's only those 2 are there.
Only those 2? But according to, if you were right, it'll give a nice shot. It says, Ein Ashchina Shoira El B'chof Beis Elef MiYisrael. It says, because it says, Shuv Hashem Rivavos Alfei Yisrael, right? Rivavos is 20,000, Alfei is 2,000. So 22,000. So we can make a tzushtel. I don't know though, but these are Rishoyim, so I don't think it's forget that. Is it? Okay, scratch that. Anyway, says a little further. So anyway, this is probably about the waters gushing down the Jordan River. They were stopped. The waters coming from on top stopped. They rose like a big pit, like a big jug. Very far. Me'adam ha'ir asher mitzad tzarasan, from Adam, the city, not the person, which is next to Tzarasan. Rabbi Yochanan said Adam is a Kiryah and Tzarasan is a Kiryah. They're both cities. Kiryahs are cities. Shneimis are meal mizum mizu, and there's 12 meal from one to the other. Malamitria gomayim gochim ba'olin, so the waters stood up, and it should be, instead of kemitzad tzarasan, so it should be like the Bible says, kemei Adam l'tzarasan yud beis meal. And should say Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Because they made a tower 12 meal high. So Rabbi Lezer said, this is not in the Yerushalmi, it's in the Bavli. Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shamua, now going back to the text inside, what's more swifter? Kal here means swifter, water or people. So Amayim calling me Adam. Water swifter than people. Teilach Shuken, you can go and check that. So that can't be. That the waters only stood up to a height of 12 meal. Because then, if they stood, how do they stand up? For a amount that they gathered there for a certain amount of time. But 12 meal was the precise measure of Machane Yisrael. 12 meal was the length, right? So it would not have left enough time if the waters just piled up for enough time to create a height of 12 meal, and then they rushed down again, immediately afterwards, because remember, the waters keep piling up until they reach their top height, and they don't just freeze. At that point, they start gushing. So he's simply saying logistically, and I'm not good at the math, but logistically, it's not enough time for a camp with 12 million people to pass by, because waters are much swifter than people. So the waters would gather to a height of 12 meal much quicker than the amount of time which it would take for people a column of 12 meal to pass. You got the idea, right? So therefore he says it must have been taller than that. So he says, Malamed, Ela Malamed Triyumayim Goychim keeping Agabe keeping. They were good. They were going much higher than that. How far? I believe in my Liba Shokir to the very middle of the sky. Tamar means some say above. Now, Bavel, I think, doesn't mean the distance to Bavel, but so that they could see it in Bavel. Ne'emakan harchek says here that the water stood far distant up. Ne'emahan says elsewhere in Tanakh, Me'eretz v'choyka mo'bo elai, they come from a very different, distant place, mi Bavel. Tari Elazar ben Yaakov Omer, this is in the Bavli too, Yoysim b'shlosh meals milu yomai gedushim v'olim. They went up more than 300 meals straight up, keeping waves on top of waves. All the guys saw that this was going on. Knani, Asher Al-Yam, Asher Avisha, Hashem Esimei Yarden, they all heard that Hashem drive the Jordan rivers in Nebnei Yisrael from before the Jews out of them until they passed. So obviously they heard it somewhere. How they hear because they saw and they inquired when they saw this great pillar of water what exactly was going on. Now this is an amazing thing here, from here to the Mishnah. Is not the Bavli. In the Yerushalmi, in the Bavli it says that when the Jews were in the Jordan River, I don't know exactly how this works because the Jordan River is very narrow, but I guess as each person passed by, they asked them, "Are you makabel upon yourself to enter Eretz Yisrael Hamanas L'Reshes Esaretz?" Now the condition you'll conquer the land. If they said, and Yeshua told you, don't say yes, and the waters will sweep you away. Okay? But that's not what the Yerushalmi has. I skipped over. In the Yarden, they accept upon themselves that I'm responsible for your hidden sins. In other words, even though I don't know about your sins, I'm responsible for them. Right, that's called part of Arbus. I'm not responsible for your revealed sins, but also your hidden sins. Okay, and that they accept in the Jordan River. Yeshua told them at that time, if you don't accept it by yourself, the waters will come and sweep you away. Rabbi Simon said, Barzakta said, V'yos makes sense. In the Bavli, I think it said, not here in the Sotah, but somewhere I think it says there in Comedy Stars only in Hargrizim and Harevo, But he says, no, it makes sense to Kabul now. Shrei Achan Chata Achan Sin, Veruba Shel Sanhedrin Nafla Abai, and the majority of Sanhedrin, 36 people, then fell in war at Ai. Because of Koyis HaReim Zelazeh, even for Nistoros, even for hidden sins, like Achan stealing from the booty of Yericho. Rabbi Levi said, now this is the amazing part. That's not so amazing. Levi, but Yavne Hutra Ritzua. On Yavne, this belt was broken, meaning the Anshik not Anshik, the Sanhedrin davened that we shouldn't be responsible anymore for the hidden sins of our neighbors. It was an amazing concept. It's not in the Bavli as far as I know. Yotz the Basko v'Amra, and the Basko came out and said, Ein lachem esik b'nistoros. You no longer have any dealings in hidden things, meaning I'm not responsible for your hidden Averis anymore. It must be that they felt, I don't know exactly what went on in Yavne. It must be that as a precursor to the goals, they decided Am Yisrael should not be responsible everywhere where they are for everybody else's hidden sins. In Eretz Yisrael, where there's central authority and everybody's close to each other, so we're all ravens, maybe we don't even have a choice in Eretz Yisrael, right? But when people are scattered, Arba Kanfos Tevel, so the Sanhedrin davened that the Arba should be canceled. I should not be responsible for your Nistaros, and they were answered. That we no longer are responsible for each other's hidden sins. The Korban says the first line after the next mission should be here as well. They had great anguish trying to be mevatel this business with Nistaros, but they were successful.
Couldn't figure out because compare what the Korban got this. I thought it was like a...
He made it up right now. It's on the next line here. Okay. Halachava. Birkas Kohanim Ketzad. How does Birkas Kohanim work? Because Amish Sunyana de Yoima that we're learning this because we're learning in this room, as I mentioned last night. This room now they duchen every day because they have a Sephardim minion here, so they duchen every day here. Because Sephardim duchen every day, even in Chutz La'aretz, unlike we Ashkenazim. So if you want to come get a Birkas Kohanim, want to come wash the Kohanim's hands in the middle of the week, all you got to do is come here at 7:30 minyan, and you can do it. Birkas Kohanim Ketzad. How does Birkas Kohanim work? In Chutz La'aretz we say 3 brachos, meaning we say Amen after each paragraph. We say Recha Hashem Yishmerecha Amen, so on and so forth. In Medina you didn't do that. Mikdash bracha achas, because in Mikdash you wouldn't say Amen, right? Mikdash we would never say answer Amen to brachos. Always say Baruch Shekva Machus Olam Voed, but not Amen. Okay? But Mikdash Yomrim Mitzvah Shem Kiksava, they would say the Shem Havaya, like Yudke Vavke, they would enunciate it. And the Chutz outside the Beis HaMikdash, they would just, say Aleph Dalet, not Yudke Vavke. But in Medina, Kohanim Nosim Sidem Knei Katfos. Same in the outside Beis HaMikdash, the Kohanim lift their hands opposite their shoulders, but Mikdash Shagav Hashem over their heads. Chutzin Kohen Gadol, except the Kohen Gadol, She'edim Magbi Yadav V'Lam Yitzitz, he doesn't raise his hands higher than the tzitz on his forehead. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Af Kohen Gadol Magbi Yadav V'Lam Yitzitz, no, he also does it above his tzitz. Shneimar says, V'Yisar Ron Esi Yadav, Elo Am V'Yivochem, he lifted up his hands to the nation and blessed them. That's the bracha of the Birchas Kohanim. What's Birchas Kohen Gadol? Okay, Tzad, Chaz, this is bracha Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. Chazak, this is Noitel Sefer Torah, the Chazak, this is the Shamish. Takes us in the Beis HaMikdash, takes the Sefer Torah, and also Rosh HaKnesset, he gives it to the president. Rosh HaKnesset is the head of the shul, and on the Har HaBayis, whatever they did exactly, I don't know exactly what kind of davenings they had there, but Nosel, kind of gives it to the sister Kohen Gadol. Vaskan Nosel, the Kohen Gadol, the Skan gives the Kohen Gadol. Kohen Gadol, Oimedu Makaba, V'Korei, Kohen Gadol stands up, and the Gemara is going to ask, what was he doing till now? He stands up, receives the Torah, V'Korei, Omeid, and he reads standing. V'Korei Achrimos, he reads in Parshas Sefer Vayikra, Parshas Achrimos, it's about the Avoda, V'Ach B'Asor, and the Maftir of Ach B'Asor, V'Goyel HaTorah, and then he wraps up the Torah, M'nich V'Cheiko puts in his bosom, V'Emer says, Yosem Mashakris Ifnechem Kosav Kan, more than I read before you is written here, V'Asor Sheb'Chomesh P'Kudim, actually it wasn't the Maftir, Asor over there is in Vayikra, in Emor. And V'Asar Chumash Pikudim, the one in Parshas Pinchas, Hayakora Salpeh would not say it from inside, say it Baal Peh. V'Varech L'Shmar Bros, we make 8 brachas, we only make, we make now 7 brachas of Torah, but he would make 8. Al Torah, Val Avoida, Val Doya, Val Mechilas Avam, Val Mikdash, Val Yisrael, Val Konim, Ushar Tefillah, and the Gemara is going to say what all those things are. Right, skipping in the first line of the Gemara because we read it already. B'chol Asar, this is not in the Bavli either, but it's in the Yerushalmi. We had in Sefta Yuma, most of this Yerushalmi read in Sefta Yuma. B'chol Asar, At Amar Ochin Eitz Torah. Everywhere you say, we go to the Torah. So it says you take the Sefer Torah to the Kohen Gadol, you should go get it himself, right? That's proper covet. Says more, so say themselves, the Torah is given honor by being brought to the Gedolei Torah. You hear talking about the Kohen Gadol. Of course, in the Kohen Gadol with Stokim, I guess is a bit of a monkey wrench, but the principle applied, even though in practice it didn't work out so well. Says more about, wait a minute, what about a bottle? Vilna Araisa Reish Galusa. They would bring the Sefer Torah to the Reish Galusa. So Amar Rabbi Yossi knows why we do that. He's not necessarily a Gadol, he's just a political leader. Nowadays they bring the Sefer Torah to the women's section in certain places. Amar Rabbi Yossi, everyone said, no, since the Exarch, the lineage of the Exarch is from David HaMelech. So therefore, we give cover not to him. He might be a Shmo, but he's David's, descendant. Okay? Says the Gemara, we give them the minig of their forefathers. Tamati, we learned, but that over there, and again, we had this elsewhere, not just in Yuma, but also in Megillah. Medagin, Benavi, you can skip around in the Haftarah, maybe down the Torah, but not in the Torah itself. Medagin Benavi, you can skip around Haftarah, maybe down the Navi, but not from one sefer to the other. Benavi Shiur Beis is one of the 12 minor prophets, you can skip from one sefer to the other. Medagin B'Torah, you don't skip in Torah, why not? You don't wind the sefer Torah in public. Rabbi Yossi asks, you never skip Hagatz b'chosheis parshat. What if it's a small skip? Small, then you can go, so you don't have to do much winding. El Kadesh, so that's not the reason. Rather, the reason you don't skip is El Kadesh Yishmu Yisrael Seder, so you can listen to everything in order. Okay, the shayla is why we skip in Vayichal, because Vayichal we skip, So it could be that that's not, could be, I don't know, could be that it's on a tinus and not part of the regular Seder Kriya, maybe that's different. I don't remember exactly why it's different. Anyway, be that as it may, what about here on Yom Kippur? You skip from Vayikra to Emor. From Achrimos to Emor. Achrimos is the Avodah. And Emor speaks about the 10th day of the month. So we're skipping in the middle, skipping all parts of Kedoshim. So how do we skip when the Kohen Gadol reads the Yom Kippur, right? So it says, that's different because that's a Seder HaYom. And again, that must be the reason for a tinus also. Seder HaYom allows you to skip around, okay?
There's something that you could skip up to 3 Amudim.
Yeah, but I don't think that's in the Gemara itself. I think that might be...
I recall...
Yeah, I don't... Do we have in the Yerushalmi, maybe? I don't remember. I don't know. Was it Bavli? It could be. Anyway, maybe there argues on this. I don't remember it. It sounds familiar, right? Says Martelcha, you should know that this has a special exception to Marav Shimon Lakish. Normally you don't read Baal Peh. The Kor and here, the Maftir Korei Al Peh, you read it Baal Peh. So obviously there are special exceptions. Rabbi Yossi Mefakid, Rabbi Yossi's command, Lebar Ula Chazona, the Bar Ula, there was the Shamish, the Knish Bavloi, or the Babylonian Shul. Kadi Chad Uraya, when you only have one Torah, Togele Lechori Parachta, and roll it, the Kormei changes the gears of Lahadi Parachta, take it out and roll it, right? From place to place. We need to read two things. Karin and Tar table, when there are two Sefer Torahs, don't roll. Take back one and take out the other one. They didn't take out the two Sefer Torahs at once. They took out one, finished it, they put it back, and then took out the other one. But the main thing is, again, we're not, because of Tirch the Tzibur, we're not Goyal Sefer Torah whenever we can take a different one. He made 8 brachas, right? Al Torah is HaBoicher B'Torah. Because he used to wait, so he make Birchas Torah. Fa'avoida, Shos Cholavatcha Bir Navod, which is the way we finish B'Sech Zeno Einenu on Yom Tovim, right, in Muslim. Va'avoida, Tov L'chol L'Hodos, That's like modim. It's like a brach on Yom Kippur. Al mikdash haboicher b'mikdash, special brach base of mikdash. Vam Ravidi is a slightly different version of Shechem b'tzion, which resides in Zion. Va'Yisrael haboicher b'Yisrael, also a unique bracha. Va'Kohanim b'Kohanim, which is Kohanim unique bracha. Va'Shar Tefillah, the Tchit, that was like a bracha Tefillah v'Tainis. Tchino ba'Kosha, it's a request and a supplication. Sham Chisot Tzichim Livashal V'nach Am Yisrael must be redeemed in front of you. Baruch Ato Hashem Shomei Tefillah. That was the 8th bracha. Okay. What times do you guys have? 13 after. Should I succumb to my temptation here? Parshas HaMelech Ketzah. Parshas HaMelech Hakel. Motzai Yod V'achot Shulchag, the last day of Sukkot, B'Shmini, meaning Shmini Atzeres, and Shmini at the 8th year, Motzai Shvius, which next time will be Tafshin Samach Beis, 2002. Oslim Lo Bima Shalet, we make a special bima, a platform of wood by Zara, V'Yeshiv, and it sits upon it, the king. Shemet says, Miketz Sheva Shanim B'Moed Shnaz HaShmita, at the 70 years at a time, the Shnaz HaShmita Chag Skos B'Vokay Yisrael Liros. Whoever I saw comes. Chazan HaKnesset says to Shamash Noitel Sefer Terminal Sort Knesset gives it to the president. Rosh Knesset kind of gives it to the assistant Kohen Gadol. Vaskan Noitel Kohen Gadol, the assistant gives it to the Kohen Gadol himself. The Kohen Gadol knows no Melech. The Kohen Gadol is the king. The Melech Oymedu Makabel stands up and receives it. The Koreh Yeshiv, and he sits down to read. Agrippas HaMelech Omar V'Kibel. He stood up and received the Torah. The Korah, and he stood up reading the Torah as well. Praising for this. When he got the book, says you can't put upon yourself a not foreigner's king because it's not your brother. Zogo ein of Devos, his eyes filled with tears. Amrulos, and they said, Altisioli Agrippas, do not fear Agrippas. Achinu Ator, you are our brother. We'll see the Gemara is not too pleased with that. Let's go. Lo Chen Tani Rabbi Chia, then Rabbi Chia tells, Lo Yisa Yeshiva Azor El Malchi B'Yistav V'Vad, and it was actually going back to the first Mishnah. Because it said the Kohen Gadol was sitting down. Said the Kohen Gadol was sitting down until he got the Sefer Torah, and then he stood up to get the Sefer Torah. So actually, the Bible says it was in the Yezus Noshim. The Yezus Noshim you're allowed to sit. But the Yerushalmi doesn't give that answer. So it says the Gemara of Lo Yisa, what did we learn? Only Malchi B'Yistav. It said, from Rabbi Yami, Rabbi Shimon, Lakish, Af Lo Malchi B'Yistav, Lo Yisa Yeshiva B'Azorah. Even Malchi B'Yistav were not allowed to sit down in Azorah, only in Yezus Noshim. So it says more amazing answer, which actually, so Allah he didn't actually sit, he reclined against the wall. And we know reclining against the wall, leaning against the wall, is like sitting. And that's what the Kohen Gadol was doing. He wasn't actually sitting, so from here you see, for all sorts of things, that's kind of like an in-between position, not standing, not sitting. That's why during Chazar Zashatz, those who stand are very often makel to stand leaning over things. And when you make a bracha achrona, you're supposed to sit. So some people will make a bracha achrona, ala michya. So some people make a leaning. So there are all sorts of kulas which come from this concept of leaning being not quite sitting and not quite standing. It says when it's on the Bible here. V'aksiv what does it say? V'yova Mel Davi Yeshu B'fnei Hashem. Davi came and sat before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now the Muni Yerushalayim says, what's the kasha? It was from Malchi Beis David. So he's allowed to sit. So he says, no. Where is he allowed to sit? In the Beis HaMikdash. Was there a Beis HaMikdash in the time of David? No, so he wasn't allowed to sit. Malchi Beis David, once the Beis HaMikdash was built, it was built like it was a Tanai that they could sit. But beforehand, what right did David have to sit? Wherever he was. So it says, Taka didn't sit. Rav Barnagri, Yishev Atzmo Tefillah, it was miyach himself to David. He put himself in a set of mindset to David. Okay? Alright, what about over there? Time we learned by Korban Pesach. The first group of Korban Pesach went down and sat on the Temple Mount. Vashni, the second went down and sat Bechel. Vashlish has been Korban, but the third set sat down in place. So the sitting in the Azorah, no. Rav Nachman Shemar said, Martin and Yoshua Mikoyim. Does it say they sat down? They stood till after they left. That's when Erev Pesach comes down on Shabbos. They wouldn't leave until after Shabbos was over. So they would stand in place wherever they were standing. That day, when they were flattered Agrippas and said, you're a brother, a lot of people fell to the Romans as a punishment for their having been giving chanifas to Agrippas, and that's in the Bavli as well. And we will stop here.